For most of our nation's history, our nation's moral code, or values, was taken from the Bible. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And the Ten Commandments. Honor your father and your mother. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not covet anything of your neighbor's. And then there were 4 others that had to do with God. These are often posted prominently in public places, including our public schools and courtrooms. Then the court calls supreme called that whole practice unconstitutional. Forget that had been the practice without incident for over 200 years. Something else had to be found to take its place. It was always believed that moral code was given to us by God. Now a new one was needed, and we had to figure it out on our own, make one up as we go along. The first draft was much simpler than the old ones, the old rules. Instead of 10 commandments, there were 4: tolerance, equality, fairness, and diversity. But then they did it one better: diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think this will probably be the last attempt, and is gradually being codified throughout our country, one municipality at a time. No public comment was asked for, but comment we must. We might ask, who came up with this motto or mantra? Was it a group of our religious leaders? No, religion was a private matter. It had no place in public life. Besides, we were too diverse of a people to agree on anything religious. No, it was Marxists, the political left. They've never been shy about anything except using such terminology to describe themselves. So what should we make of it? Well, diversity. They tell us diversity is our strength, but they don't really mean that. Why do I say that? Because it is not about diversity. Because the only parts of the population they want to be diverse are the predominantly white ones. If a community were all black or all Hispanic or all Muslim, nobody would complain about a lack of diversity. Nobody says we need more blacks in Hispanic areas or more Hispanics in black ones. There's only white areas that people don't like. Whites are the only ethnic group that people complain about if they have a homogeneous community. That is deemed racist and elitist. But any other ethnic group can be homogeneous as possible without a word. The goal is a minority society, but calling it diversity is the first step to making this happen. It is important here that everybody be definable by a group that they are a part of. Race being one of the major groups, because history is defined by the various groups interacting with the others. But primarily it is defined by white people oppressing all the others. This is why things that suggest white rule, white power, or white majority must be broken up and tempered with minorities. Whites have been and still are oppressors of all the other people groups, and the others are victims. Which leads to the second rule, equity. Equity means that all the oppressed groups are victims, and this historical victimhood must be addressed. Equality was the starting point. You don't want to be arguing against that, but equity takes it a step further. If history is about oppression and victims, then it is not enough to simply stop the oppressing. The victims have been too severely damaged or disadvantaged in our society to succeed now on their own. We must take action to assist them in becoming equal. It is not enough to merely treat people equally. We have to ensure that they look equal as well. They are incapable of recovering from past injustices without remedial help from our government and our society. Equality means that people are judged by what they do. Equity means that is not what we should be looking at. Certain groups have been perpetually disadvantaged, so personal achievement is not as important as group advancement. In practical terms, it is not the most skilled, the highest performing that wins the job, the position, or who should. But different groups have different standards, and all jobs, positions, and awards must be given out in ways that reflect the various groups' representation in society, at minimum. like participation trophies instead of rewarding only the winners. Inclusion. On the surface, this seems a natural complement to equity. There have been many marginalized groups in our society, not merely ethnic ones. Inclusion affirms that their full acceptance. But there's more here than just making people feeling accepted and welcome. There's a higher goal to all of this. That doesn't mean that every person that's embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion is in on the plan. As presented, they seem like admirable ideals, but that is what is known as marketing. The goal is the reinventing of America. The United States has long been the freest and richest country in the world. It was also essentially white, capitalistic, and Christian. It was also seen by its people as being good, blessed, and exceptional. The new narrative is that the United States is an evil nation, built on the backs of slaves and driven by greed. The whites are racist oppressors, and religion, particularly Christianity, has no place in public life or policy. Diversity addresses the white problem, equity addresses the capitalism problem, and inclusion addresses the Christian problem. The religion of Christ says that God created the world and gave us his laws on how things work. What we used to call truth. Now, truth is whatever you want it to be. Truth is individual. Everything we have learned from childhood, from our parents, from history in our schools is all wrong. Boys can be girls, girls can be boys. And nobody can tell you that you are not. Inclusion simply means they were not to question things anymore. All the old ways of looking at things are wrong, outdated, unenlightened, and hateful, and so they must be eliminated. The only reason that this has gone on unchallenged for so long is that most people have been just living their lives, working, raising a family, being involved in church and volunteer work, that they just haven't been paying attention. They never imagined that anyone would want to take away what they had here, but they were wrong. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are tools to redefine what America is, discredit its history, its traditions, its values, and to bring about a new world order. Freedom means that your potential is theoretically boundless. That essentially means that people's success, however you want to define it, is as unique as the individual. In other words, it will be entirely unequal. Some people will have achieved enormous wealth. The mistake is thinking that there is a fixed amount of wealth to be had, and that if one has more, then all the others will have less. No, his wealth only shows us what is possible, that one's potential is not limited by our society. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is rejection of society as we have known it, and attempts to create a new one, less free, less prosperous, and less tolerant.